This presentation is funded for future communities by the National Lottery Community Fund, and is part of a program of offline and online support for women aged over 40 with physical and well-being needs or support. Yeah, if you can start the first slide, please, Sybil, before I hand over to you. Just like to introduce myself. My name is Gary Parker. I'm the chair of Future Communities, and I've had 20 years of experience in community engagement and fundraising. And Sybil, I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Sybil, and I am the digital advisor at Future Communities. So, what I do is I provide web design and a range of related digital services to small businesses, helping them to make the most of technology and digital tools within their businesses. And I have worked with organizations from a variety of industry sectors.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you can move on to the next slide. What we're going to have here is 9 agenda items. The presentation should last 30 to 40 minutes. And we will go through introduction to online well-being, positive ways to use the internet, the dangers of social media overuse, offline activities to improve mental health, how to deal with harmful content, tips to improve your online well-being, managing digital overwhelm, and online safety. And finally, there'll be some contact information. So back to you, Sybil, for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Gary, and thank you everyone for joining us today on this webinar, which is all about online well-being. So first of all, we'll start with a definition of what online well-being is. So we have here online well-being, or digital wellness, as it's also called, refers to maintaining a healthy, balanced relationship with technology that supports your mental, physical, and emotional health. So just like a balanced diet, eating a variety of different foods, online well-being is about a healthy balance between online as well as offline activities. And in this presentation today, we're going to look at a few ways that you can improve your online well-being, and also we'll cover some ways you can stay safe online. And we'll be covering use of the internet, social media platforms, and a few digital tools as well. So there are many positive ways that you can use the internet, and these are what I recommend you use it for. And so on the list here, we have entertainment. So we have many movies, ebooks, for example, online, just browsing our social media feeds for funny videos, etc. Keeping up with news and current affairs, finding out new information, educating ourselves and learning new things, keeping in contact with others. So we use it to keep in touch with our friends, family, loved ones, business colleagues. We can use it to meet new people online. We can use it for running a business. We do online shopping. We use it for online banking and also booking appointments and other sorts of admin that we need to do in our daily lives. So there are many useful and positive ways in which we can use the internet, and those are the ways that I recommend. Now, unfortunately, as well as having positive uses, there can be some negative effects. And this slide refers specifically to social media overuse. And this is when we tend to use social media too much or in a negative way. So here are a few negative side effects. There is doom scrolling. So this is a phenomenon that has arisen and it has become worse since the COVID pandemic. And doom scrolling is the act of constantly scrolling on our social media feeds or news feeds, searching for negative content in particular. And we tend to do this because our brains are inherently wired to keep us safe from danger. And so we constantly look out for danger, and we want to naturally prepare ourselves for any danger. And women in particular are quite vulnerable to doom scrolling. And so that's why it's something I wanted to point out. We tend to be quite because a lot of the news, especially violent news, is targeted against women and children. So naturally, women tend to be more prone to doom scrolling. There is social media addiction. So when we can't stop using it, information overload. We get bombarded with so many notifications, one post after another, then it can become overwhelming, and we feel like we're being overstimulated with information. It can lead to feelings of isolation, depression, and anxiety. And we may tend to compare ourselves with others. On social media, people tend to post mostly the positive things that are happening in their lives. And that makes us feel inadequate because we feel as if we're not doing as well as our colleagues or our friends or family members, which isn't the case. Sleep disruption, so we can experience disruptions in our sleep patterns because of not going to bed on time due to excessive scrolling at night. Also, the blue light from screens and from our phones or our computers can trick our brains into thinking it's still daytime and not telling ourselves that it's actually time for bed. Reduced productivity. So if we're spending so much time on social media, then we're not giving time and attention to other things in our lives that are probably more important. Shortened attention span. Social media social media platforms are designed in this way to keep us engaged. And the trend now is to show us lots of little posts, short bursts of information, short videos, like 30-second long videos. And as we get used to seeing this short form content, our attention spans get shorter and shorter all the time. I find now that when I look at a social post, if it doesn't grab my attention within 3 to 4 seconds, I'll just instantly scroll to the next item. And that's not a good thing. And lastly, on here, we have a sedentary lifestyle. So if we're spending so much time on our phones or on our computers, we're sitting down for a long time, And this in turn can have other long-term health effects, which I won't go into today. And then on the right-hand side, we have an interesting statistic up here. So in the UK, users spend an average of 1 hour 37 minutes per day on social media. And I expect that number is probably going up every year. So as mentioned in the previous slide, one of the negative side effects of social media overuse is feelings of isolation and loneliness. So ironically, we should be using social media to keep in touch with our friends, families, so that we can prevent these feelings, but it sometimes can have the opposite effect if we're not using it in the right way. So when I say using social media in the right way, I mean things like finding groups that align with your interests and values. So if you have hobbies, for example, art, music, then find some groups where you can have positive conversations with people who have similar interests to you. Avoid toxic communities and harmful content. So toxic communities are where there's things like bullying, harassment, people just arguing about things that are not even important, even little things, even racism, etc. You want to avoid those negative communities. And a bit later on, we will talk about what to do if you come across harmful content online. And what you want to be doing is developing meaningful relationships offline as well as online. So the internet is great. We can talk with people who are halfway around the world from the convenience of our own home. But we don't want to be spending all of our time doing that if we can avoid it. We always need to get out there and meet people in person, meet them in real life, getting away from the screen. So as well as interacting online, we also need to interact offline as well. And then on the next screen, I'm going to talk about some offline activities that you can do to improve your well-being. Yeah, so as I go through this presentation, I just want you to remember that I'm not saying to avoid using the internet and avoid using social media. As we've seen, there are very positive ways in which you can use it, but the key is to maintain a balance. So we don't want to be overusing the online world, but at the same time, we want to improve our well-being by doing things offline as well. And here are a few ideas for you. So going for a walk, meditation is a good one. So I try to do this at least once a day. So I find that meditating for 10 minutes before going to bed just helps to clear my mind. It stops me from looking at my screen immediately before sleeping and helps me to feel calmer so I can sleep better. And it's a good idea to also do this in the morning, I think, as well. So immediately after you wake up, instead of checking your screen, your social media feed, just try meditating for 5 to 10 minutes before doing anything else. If you have a hobby, focusing time to develop that, spending time with nature, being around friends and family. Reading is also a good thing, and by reading, I don't mean ebooks online, I mean an actual physical book that you can hold in your hands and read. doing exercise or sports, and also put here laughter yoga. So if you've not come across that before, that is a way of faking laughter. Your body can't tell the difference between real laughter and fake laughter. So rather than laughing at a joke, for example, laughter yoga is a way of just laughing as if just making yourself laugh. There's no particular reason for it, but it's because your body can't tell the difference. It doesn't know it's a fake laugh, but it still has the same positive effects that real laughter has. So all these things are a good way to get away from the screen and decrease your stress levels as well. And then we've got here some tips to improve your online well-being once again. So good idea to set limits on screen time. So making a habit to try and track how much time you're spending if possible. And if you see that the time is becoming a bit excessive, then you need to make some changes and try closing some apps, closing your phone and coming off from those from your devices. You can also, by setting limits, I mean things like not checking your phone first thing in the morning, for example, or last thing at night before going to bed. That's also another way to set boundaries. Then maintaining good posture when using your phone or your computer. Because we spend so much time on these devices, it's difficult to remember that we need to maintain good posture when doing this. So often, because we'll be sitting for a long time, we might sit with an arched back, hunched over a screen. And being in that position for a long time is going to have negative effects. So be mindful about how you're sitting. Make sure you have somewhere comfortable to sit. If you're using a laptop, the screen needs to be at your eye level. Your arms should be like parallel to the floor, etc. Taking regular breaks. We should never forget to take breaks in between, whether we're working or whether we're using the internet. Restricting the types of content you interact with. So as we mentioned previously, if you come across toxic communities or harmful content, then please don't engage with it. Because what happens is social media platforms are based on algorithms, and these algorithms detect what sort of content you're interacting with. So if you tend to interact with negative content, then it's going to give you more of that type of content, and that's not what you want. So if you come across content that is harmful, ignore it, and also later on we'll talk about reporting it as well. Customize your social media feeds. So this leads on to what I previously said about the algorithms learning about what you interact with and showing you more of that type of content. So in some platforms, there might be an option when you go to a social post, it could give you it may ask you for feedback. It might ask, is this post relevant to you? Do you want to see more or less of this type of content? So that's a really useful feature, because now what you can do is you can give it feedback and it will give you more of the types of content that you do want to see. And so just keep, whenever you come across a post, give it some feedback, tell it whether you want to see more of that or whether you don't want to see it. Um, yeah, we've talked about avoiding toxic communities. And then lastly, we have here to seek support. So if you feel like you're really struggling, you can't keep it under control, then even speaking to someone you trust can help, or even seeing a doctor if it's more serious. But the important thing is speaking to someone can really help you a lot. So don't feel like you have to suffer alone. So I've got here and start your digital detox today. So digital detox is more or less what we already talked about. It's not about avoiding the internet and social media altogether. It's about being in control of it, using it in a positive and responsible way, limiting how much you interact with it, only engaging with the positive content, and so on. Having said that, you might want to just come off the internet entirely, which is not a bad idea. So you might even want to take a complete break from it, which is great. But as I say, we're not saying you need to avoid it completely. It's all about you using it wisely rather than it using you. We've got a section here on managing digital overwhelm. So we'll talk about some tools and hacks that you can implement in your daily life just to make things a little bit easier. So it's very likely that you will be using email. I think all of us have an email address nowadays. Unfortunately, our inboxes can become very full of unread emails, junk mail, and everything else in between. And if we don't manage it properly. So here's a few tips for you. So nowadays we feel the need to respond to things immediately. Please don't do that. We really don't need to respond to every notification that we receive. So with email, check the email only at specific times. So there's no reason why you need to be constantly checking. If something really is that important, then and someone's trying to get in touch with you, they wouldn't use email, they would more likely call you instead. So email is not usually something that needs urgent attention. You can flag important messages. So if you do read an email and it is fairly important, you know you need to get back to it, but you don't have the time to do it right now, then there should be a little symbol that says flag. So if you click on that, it will show up maybe at the top of your inbox, but it's there to indicate that it's important and it needs to be responded to at a later date. Now, newsletters, we get lots and lots of newsletters. We tend to sign up for things and we sometimes don't even engage with them. So, one thing you can do is reduce the frequency of these newsletters if possible. So, with some websites, some platforms, it may give you the option to receive either a daily digest or weekly or even monthly one. So if it's not something that is too important and you don't need to receive daily updates, then go for the weekly or the monthly option. And then that will drastically reduce the amount of emails that you receive. Then if you want a quick way of unsubscribing from newsletters, there's a tool called unroll.me, which is free. So you can go onto that website, connect your email inbox to it. And what it will do is it will give you a list of all the email lists that you have subscribed to, and then you can go through each one and decide whether you want to keep on that list or whether you want to unsubscribe from it. So it's quite handy. And then lastly, we've got here regularly check your spam folder. If you don't check your spam, two things will happen. One is that the amount of spam in there is just going to keep piling up and up. And secondly, you may even get some important emails that get flagged as spam, and then you end up missing them. So I would recommend to keep checking it. Delete any that are actually spam, keep it clean, and then it will be much easier to go through it and check which are the actual legitimate emails that need to be kept. Okay, so that's email management. Making the most of your mobile phone. So I think all of us have a mobile nowadays, and it's supposed to make our lives easier, but sometimes I'm not so sure that's the case. It tends to complicate things for us sometimes. So here's a few tips for you if you're feeling overwhelmed with your phone. So firstly, I would go through all the apps that are installed and delete any that you no longer need, because I'm sure you'll find that there's many apps that you have on there that you don't use. So there's no point in keeping them on there. We often join WhatsApp groups and other communities. People tend to be posting messages all day, and these groups can get very noisy. And for me, I cannot work if my phone is constantly pinging with these notifications. So it's a good idea to mute these groups, and so you don't get a notification every time someone sends a message. What you can do is similar to emails, just choose a couple of times per day and just check those groups at those specific times. Customize your notifications. So by default, apps usually have their notifications turned on, and they'll send a notification every time something happens. And you really don't need that level of notifications. So go through your apps. For some of them, you can just turn them off completely. Others, you can customize them so you only receive the most important ones. For a more restricted effect, there is a do not disturb mode. So with this, you can mute all of the notifications on your phone at specific times of the day, but you can choose to receive notifications just from certain apps or maybe specific contacts in your contact lists. So that's a good way to do it because you have more granular control. Or you can just put your phone on airplane mode and enjoy the silence. Really good if you're trying to focus on something and you can't be disturbed. Very good for productivity, I think. Some other tips are to leave your phone in another room when you're around other people. I think it's quite rude when you're with a group of people and you're constantly checking your phone and not engaging with others. So if you're tempted to keep picking up your phone and checking it, then leave it in another room and then you just can't do it. And also, like, especially at meal times as well, we shouldn't really be checking our phone. We should be enjoying meal times with our families. So yeah, putting your phone out of reach is a good way to stop that temptation. Next thing here is switch your phone to grayscale. So you might have the ability to reduce the amount of saturation on your phone, making it black and white or grayscale. Research has shown that that can be an effective way of making it less tempting to actually tap the icons on your phone because they're not so colorful and they don't stand out so much. So you might want to try that. Then if all of the above tips still doesn't work, you're still tempted to keep constantly checking your phone, you can't put it down, then get a dumb phone. So there's actually a trend right now where dumb phones like the old Nokia style phones are actually coming back into fashion. And these are phones that don't have any internet access or maybe very limited access, no apps, maybe some simple games. But the main purpose of these phones is just to give you the essential functionalities like making calls and sending text messages. So that way you won't be constantly bombarded with notifications and you won't be checking your social media on it. And then at the end of this presentation, there's an article with a list of dumb phones that you might want to look at. Okay. So we've got a section in this presentation about online safety, also known as basic cybersecurity practices. Unfortunately, there are many people out there who abuse the internet. They use it to take advantage of us and to scam us. So we need to be very careful when we're online. So I'm going to tell you a few best practices that you can implement to stay safe. Okay. So because we all have so many accounts online nowadays, each one requiring a different password, it can be impossible to remember all of these, and we shouldn't really be writing them down. We should not be reusing passwords across multiple accounts because if we're using the same password and someone guesses that password, then they can effectively access all of those accounts that are using that same password. So it's not like a good idea to be using the same one. Because we have so many passwords to remember, we can use a tool called a password manager. There's an example here called LastPass, and it's a free tool that you can install in your browser so that whenever you log into an account, it can automatically, well, it will save your usernames and passwords and then it will automatically fill them when you want to log in. So great thing about this is you'll have no more forgotten or lost passwords. And these password managers are very safe to use. They've got a very high level of encryption and security in place. You can use the password manager to also generate strong passwords. So by strong, I mean passwords which are random and not easily guessed by others. And as I said, what you shouldn't be doing is writing passwords down, and also you shouldn't be sharing them with any other people as well. So as well as using your username and password to log in, there's also something called two-factor authentication, which provides an additional layer of security. So if someone does guess your username and password, if that account has two-factor authentication set up on it, they wouldn't be able to access your account because they would need an additional piece of information, and that's called the second factor. And without going into too much technical details here, 2FA requires a user to identify themselves in two ways before gaining access to a system. So those two ways are the password and the second factor, which could be a code which is sent to your mobile, for example. It's also known as two-step verification, 2SV, or multi-factor authentication, MFA. So you may have heard those terms as well. So how you would do this is when you are signing up to an account for the first time, you register with your username and your password. And you also need something called an authentication app, which you can install onto your phone. And there's little configuration to do, but these apps are free. The process is simple to do. And the next time you log in, you put your username, password, and then the authenticator app will generate a unique code which you need to enter into the account in order to access it. Now, sometimes you'll be given the option to download or print a recovery code. So this is required because if you lose your mobile or you lose access to your authentication app, then you may not be able to get into your account. So we recommend to keep these recovery codes and store them in a safe place. Now, this might sound complicated, but it's essential because we need to protect ourselves from people guessing our passwords and hacking into our accounts. So it is very necessary to do. I just want you to understand what this process is about and how to do it. Okay. So yeah, I don't want this presentation to be very negative, but I do need to warn you that we have to be aware of scams which are happening all the time. There's so many different types of scams, and I'm not going to go through all of them today. I'll just show you a few examples. There are social engineering scams. So these are where scammers will take advantage of human error and mistakes that you may make in order to access an account of yours or to get personal information from you or even money. So, for example, phishing, which is emails that may look like they're coming from your bank, for example. It might say that there's an issue with your account and it needs to be it will be limited or even closed if you don't take action immediately. But there might be a link in the email. If you click on it, it will go to a fake website that looks like your online banking. Never click links in suspicious emails. If you're not sure whether it's real or not, then actually contact the company and ask them. Never respond to a suspicious email. And we've got smishing, which is similar to phishing, but it's sent by text instead. And we'll look at an example very soon. Quishing, which are fake QR codes, tech support scams. So these are where you click a link on the internet and suddenly your screen gets filled with pop-ups saying there's an error with your computer. You need to phone this support number to get rid of the errors, but it's not a real number. So if that happens, you just need to try and get rid of the pop-ups, try to restart your computer, and they will go away. Impersonation or identity theft. So this is why it's really important not to publicly post any personal information online because you never know who's seeing that. They could use this information, and even if you post in different places, scammers are clever enough to find all these different pieces of information and put them together and steal your identity. So malware is harmful software that has been installed on your computer. Brute force attack is is when someone guesses your or tries many different combinations of usernames and passwords until they find the right one that allows them access into your account. And then lastly on here we have AI, or artificial intelligence driven threats. So these are becoming more advanced every day. Deep fakes, which are fake images or videos of that may look like say the CEO of a company. These are becoming more difficult to tell apart from the real ones, unfortunately. Voice cloning, so you might receive a voice message from someone who you think you know, but it's actually faked. And yeah, advanced email phishing campaigns and so on. So you just really need to be vigilant at all times. Okay, so we talked about harmful content earlier on. So if you come across any content that's disturbing, harmful, negative, it should usually be a way to report this. So the screenshot here is from Facebook as an example. If when you click on the options menu on the post to report it, then you get a list here where you can choose the reason why you're reporting it. And then after that, there'll probably be a couple more steps for you to give some more information that will be sent to Facebook, and they will investigate and remove the content. You can also use a service such as Action Fraud for online scams. So at the end of this presentation, there's a link to that website if you ever need to use it. Right. So we mentioned earlier about smishing texts. You may have come across this before. It's messages that are sent via text to your phone, and they impersonate legitimate organizations like banks or delivery services. So the example on the screen here, it seems like it's coming from the parcel company called Every, but there is a strange link in the message which looks quite suspicious. So if you see strange links like this, never click on them or tap them because they will link to a fake website, and don't respond to the message. If you're not sure if it's a genuine message or not, then the best thing is to contact the company directly and they will tell you. Yeah, so people have been known to lose money through links, through messages like this. E-commerce scams. So many of us do our shopping online nowadays, and we are always looking for the best bargains that we can find. But sometimes we may come across some websites which are selling products at heavily discounted prices. So if you come across one of these, you need to be very careful. So firstly, check that the website address begins with HTTPS rather than just HTTP. And the reason is that the S stands for secure. which means that your data is safe. It's encrypted when it's sent to the website. If it doesn't have that S, it means the website is unsecured. So you should never submit any personal data, such as card payment information on an unsecured website. Other things you can do are to look for reviews. So if you see any reviews from past customers saying that they have had bad experiences with the company, then you might want to stay away from it. And look for any company contact information and just do your research, do your due diligence, and look for any warning signs that it may not be a legitimate company. If you have made a payment to an online shop and you think you might have been scammed, try contacting your bank because there's a possibility that you may get your money back if it was a genuine mistake. And always remember the old saying, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So always keep that in mind. Okay. Conscious of time. We've got here an example of a romance scam. So this happened about a month ago now to an 80-year-old woman in Japan. She was scammed into transferring £5,000 to a man who claimed that he was stranded in space and needed money to buy oxygen. Now, this may seem far-fetched. We may think, oh, this will never happen to me. But the reality is, like this are happening to people all the time. And it may not be so obvious. Scammers can be quite clever and very persuasive. So we always need to be vigilant and very careful. So romance scam happens when a scammer tries to build a romantic relationship with you over time in order to gain your trust. And then later they'll attempt to extort money or personal information from you. So you need to be aware of things like unrealistic stories, emergencies that come up, and sudden financial needs. So if any of those happen, then those are red flags and they need to be, the alarm bell should start ringing. Always be careful when sending money to someone you haven't met in person. So yeah, always make sure that you know who you're sending money to. Yes, those are the romance scam. Then finally, we've got here some online safety do's and don'ts. So keep all of your devices up to date. So operating systems usually issue updates on a regular basis. So you need to, whenever you get a notification that your phone or laptop needs updating, then please do that. Check the URL in the address bar of your browser. So look at the web address and make sure it's actually the website that you intended to visit and not the spoofed one. Lock your phone or desktop or laptop when you're not using it and it's unattended. Report harmful content or scams. And then what you don't want to do is never share your personal information publicly, including your whereabouts. So it might seem harmless posting pictures of you on holiday, but never do that whilst you're actually on holiday. When you come back, then by all means, that's fine. But don't do that whilst you're away. never enter personal information into an unsecured website, save the login details. Yeah, never save login details on public or shared computers, and never accept connection requests from people you don't know. So, in social media sites, need to be very careful that the people you are connecting with are actually the ones that you know in real life, and you can verify that they are that they are the legitimate person and not a fake profile. Okay, I'm going to hand over back to Gary. That concludes the main part of this presentation.
Okay, thank you, Sybil, for that very comprehensive presentation. Um, Victoria, have you got any questions for Sybil?
Hello there, everyone. Firstly, just wanted to really say a happy anniversary to you at CNT Associates.
Thank you.
Very, very good. Your 20 years. Congratulations. You've been a huge support to me and to many. It was just more of just to say I just completely understand and sort of buttress what you're saying in terms of the scam element. Literally 2 days ago, a very dear friend of mine, an elderly person who does have a disability, emailed me asking for an Airbnb voucher on behalf of their niece, and it turned out to be a scam. But the scammer had really gone into depth to master everything about my friend to the point where the email correspondence was word for word in the exact language that this person speaks in. And the scammer knew everything about the disabilities, the timings of appointments. I was shocked at the level of mastery that the scammer had gone through to be so realistic and super convincing. It's scary. So something along the correspondence between me and see what was the scammer then didn't quite add up because I know my friend really, really well. And so luckily there is a mutual friend, and I just reached out to that person and said, our friend emailed me this. And then the mutual friend said, that to me sounds like a scam. But I was just shocked at just the level of mastery of everything. They've obviously gone through my friend's emails, seen the closest person my friend, corresponds to via email. And it was just the language, because this person has a very specific way of speaking and everything like that. So it is scary and it is real. And I was almost duped. I was very close. And so, yeah, I'm just so glad that you pointed that out as part of your presentation. Because often we think, oh, scam is quite far-fetched from me. I'm far removed from it. I know how to protect myself. But it didn't come directly to my email, but, it was through a friend who was scammed. So it was just a reminder to me that, scammers can attack you from many different angles, and it may not be directly to you, they may not hack you specifically, but they may hack somebody close to you, if that makes sense. So yes, thank you for touching upon that. So it's not a question, more of a contribution.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victoria, for sharing that story. And I think it just reiterates how important it is to protect our accounts. So I would say two things. I know in this case, it wasn't social media where that information was posted, but we do need to be careful about what we publish publicly. So if we are posting this information online, then at least we need to protect it, look at our privacy settings, making sure that only friends or certain people can see that information, or just not posting it at all, which is better. And secondly, you touched on the point that this communication was done by email, and the scammers were even able to access that. So somewhere they had got into that person's email account. And that goes back to what I said about the two-factor authentication. So they need to go in and check their settings, making sure that they've got all the security settings in place, all the security measures. And then, yeah, and hopefully that will protect from future scams. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that response, Sybil, and thank you for your comments, Victoria. They're much appreciated. I'll just, because we're almost at 12 now, so I'll just ask you one question to finish with, Sybil. What is the one takeaway from this webinar today? If there's one thing you would advise people on or to do, what would it be?
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate the fact that online well-being and staying safe online, it's not about avoiding the online world entirely. It's all about having the balance. So balancing your online activity and as well as offline activity. It's about being in control of how you use the internet and digital tools and social media, using it responsibly and safely, and avoiding negative and harmful content, or being able to deal with that types of content if you do come across it. And staying safe, just being mindful of the online threats that are out there, being very careful and having that mindset. So yeah, it's all about healthy balance, using it positively, and not forgetting about doing things offline as well that can help to improve your online well-being and your general health.
Okay, thank you very much for that. As I said earlier, this is being recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel in due course, in the Future Communities YouTube channel. We've also got another presentation coming up this month. It's the second part of a presentation by Elizabeth Turner, who is a health coach on hormonal issues. So we'll be circulating information about that, and that is on the 23rd of October. So I'd like to thank everybody who's registered or come to the meeting today. I'd like to finally thank Sybil for a great presentation, and we will be back with you again soon. So have a good day. Thank you.